Welcome, Mr. Bukhari, to Dev Talks. This is our actually second episode on conservation and wildlife preservation work. My first question is, can you tell us about the Sulaiman Markhor, the habitat it lives in, and what are the primary threats against this animal which makes it endangered?
Markhor is a mountain goat, and it lives in the dry temperate zone, mostly in the scrub type of forest vegetation and vertical cliffs. So in Pakistan, there are three types of Markhor. One is straight-horned Markhor, about which we'll be talking about, which is mostly found in the Sulaiman range. Then second type is flare-horned Markhor, which is mostly found in Chitral region and the northern areas of Pakistan. And third is the Kashmir Markhor, which is mainly in the Kashmir region. So these are the three mountain goats, and they live in different ecological zones. The first one, as I told, is mostly in the scrub type of vegetation, in the dry temperate, whereas the flare-horned Markhor is mostly found in the Chitral region, which is dry temperate, vertical cliffs, very scanty vegetation. And third type is Markhor, Kashmir Markhor, which lives in the moist temperate zone in the Kashmir region. So these are the three animals, different types. And what was your second question about it?
Could you tell us about the primary threats against the animal? What makes it endangered?
Okay. The primary threat was hunting in all three regions. Hunting for, it was mostly local hunting for meat, whereas some influentials, politicians or bureaucrats would love it as, would hunt it for game. So these were the main major threats to these species, because there is very little forests of commercial use in these areas, on the basis of which we can say that habitat loss was not a major concern in these areas, but hunting was the primary threat that caused the decline in population of these animals.
One very interesting thing that we see in this Sulaiman Markhor range is that community, they were traditional hunters. They all carried guns. It was a Pashtun community. And through just administrative order or tribal chiefs order, it could not be managed. So some organization or some conservationist came with this innovative, creative ideas where community interests were aligned with conservation interest. So could you tell us a little bit how this all started? Where did the idea for finding a business solution come in? Who pioneered it? What happened?
First, the first problem I'll relate to the previous question also, here that previously the community hunters were hunting these animals with the traditional weapons, so that population was not getting that much affected. But with the onset of the Afghan war and introduction of automatic weapons and easy access to those weapons, it expedited the decline of the population, particularly in this region. And it all started, the conservation aspect started when Sardar Nasir Tareen was hired by Balochistan Wildlife Department to make documentary on the wildlife of Balochistan, and he landed in that area. And at that stage, he found that there are very few animals available in this area that can be recorded for a documentary. So that started the discussion with the tribal chief of that area, Sardar Taimur Jogizai. who also was who had already approached a few times to the wildlife department to take some initiative to conserve this, but because of the tribal nature of this region, the government had very little writ in this area to enforce their laws, so his efforts were not being fruitful. So when they started discussing Sardar Nasir Tareen and Sardar Jogezai, they decided to go for a solution based on community initiatives. So they identified this region as one area where we can go for it. And in the beginning, they deliberated upon the idea of community-based conservation and mobilizing the hunters to by converting them into guards. So this idea was further supported by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Department, who were the first ones in the 1985. The discussion started in 1984, and in 1985 they financed salaries of 7 wildlife guards in that area, and that started the program. When they started, at that time, there were, according to some estimates, the available population of Markhor was only 100 and less than 100 animals, and same was the case for Afghan Ureal. These are the two trophy species in this region. So Afghan Ureal is a sheep, and this one is a goat. So then they employed these 7, for employing these 7 guards, they identified the best hunters who were very proficient hunters from among the community. So as a result, those trophy hunters were not only hunters, but they were very well familiar with the habitat, very well familiar with the habits of the animal, and they were very useful in supporting the program in conducting the periodic surveys, because periodic surveys was the most important thing that built the case for trophy hunting. Trophy hunting, as you know, is the way in which selected animals are offered for hunting to the ones who pay the fee for that hunt. So when they started, it was initially a local hunt which was offered. For that was only started after three periodic surveys were conducted about the population. The first population of found when they started was less than 100, but by mid-90s, this population had grown more than 500 animals and of 500 Markhors and over 1,000 Afghan Ureals, and on the basis of the trophy hunting was started. Another interesting aspect of this hunting was that Sulaiman Markhor is a CITES species, CITES listed species. So CITES restrict the trade and transport of any animal or any animal enlisted in the species in that annex, or any part of that animal across the borders.
Nadeem, let me interrupt you here. I want to ask 2 questions. One is the CITES list is prepared by IUCN. It is a kind of red list which tells you which species are in danger of extinction and should be saved. Is that what CITES list stands for?
It's not developed by IUCN, but it is a convention on international trade in endangered animals and species,
Okay.
which restricts, maintains this list.
Okay, so they keep working on this. The second is because the idea of introducing trophy hunting, through community hunting, they address the interests of hunters that we pay you for not hunting and also safeguarding. So they were made, partners in conservation of animals. But through trophy hunting, the funds that were generated, it also addressed the interest of community also to strengthen community partnership that this money that we receive will be spent for community welfare. Is that an important aspect of this?
Uh, it was very important with respect to this that it built the stake in conserving the animal rather than hunting the animal for the community. So it changed the mindset. But though, apart from that, a very interesting aspect of this program is also the evolution through which the organization and governance of this whole aspect program emerged with time, because there is a limitation to hiring people as guards. You can't hire 100% community. So there were limitations, which was later on triggering certain conflicts in the community, that why somebody is being preferred over somebody else. And there were some issues of nepotism also, that why a certain person is who is not a hunter but is being employed. So the way they handled this issue also is also very interesting to know, that community organizations, first thing was the interest. So I refer to them more as an interest group rather than a general community organization, the way we have seen in other programs. So because they had a common interest on which they were united. Second, the gradual evolution of this community organization from a tribal structure to a participatory organization and a democratic organization in which decisions are now being taken in consultation with the community. So it broadened the scope, and also it helped in resolving the conflicts and spreading the benefit across more people rather than some individuals. Initially, it was only the the wildlife guards who were getting that benefit. But later on, this benefit was diversified from guards to local development, providing infrastructure, providing livelihood opportunities by strengthening their agriculture activity, irrigation systems were developed, and health facilities were developed for those people, so that broader community was able to benefit.
Was this all financed through funds generated by trophy hunting, or government also contributed?
It was financed from multiple sources, partly from trophy hunting, but also from donor assistance. Government of Pakistan's assistance was also provided, UNDP's, JEF small grants, and then followed by a medium-sized project. All contributed. US Fish and Wildlife Department also contributed financially towards supporting this program. WWF US also provided some funding for this also. There were multiple sources of financing on the basis of this. But the most important thing that this program was able to achieve was that because of their regular conduct of surveys, built a case with the CITES that according to the last survey, the known population of Sulaiman Markhor, it was more than 5,000, which started from less than 100. So on the basis of those surveys, and they engaged academia, research organizations in conducting those surveys, so that their is a credibility for those surveys. So as a result, the government of Pakistan was able to negotiate with the CITES that the community conservation efforts are paying off to improve the population of this animal in Pakistan. So special permission granted for a certain number of animals to be offered for international trophy hunting. So as a result of this, Pakistan got a license for permits for 7 trophy hunts per annum, which are international trophy hunts.
Okay.
So which are offered by then we on the basis that the quota was set for Balochistan, for KP, and for northern areas where these species are found.
Okay,
so that's how that was a very big achievement for them.
So these trophy hunting licenses were auctioned through some kind of market, or
these are publicized for auction, and whoever pays the highest bid gets the license. So last year, one license was sold for more than $100,000.
Wow. Okay.
These licenses are offered by the government, and 80% of the proceed goes to the government, to the communities, and 20% goes to the government for managing this hunting system. So government, otherwise these government has developed laws for community-based conservation initiatives. And on the basis of those laws, now communities are solely responsible for the protection of these animals, and government doesn't interfere in their management.
So it is a partnership. Government takes
It's
care of administrative part and legal part. Community takes enforcement on the ground, and then other partners pitch in resources in different ways, technical guidance or grant funding or whatever. So that's the most important thing. One is aligning the interests of different partners together, then finding a solution which benefits everyone, and then bringing them together and continuing that. And the most important thing is continuous documentation and verification of what is happening on ground. So making it more merit-based and evidence-based model.
For example, now Zoological Survey of Pakistan conducts the surveys instead of the community doing that. So government plays its own role in overall supervision of the program rather than getting into micromanagement.
The important message is that we don't stereotype the community, that people are not willing to help, they are traditional, they're hunters, they are the problem. So we make them partners in solution finding and solution implementing. And that is important.
In fact, this was an experimental learning. Basically, it started from the community when the government was not coming forward. So they found their own solution and then advocated that solution to the government, that this is another way of doing things.
Right. Last question to Nadeem. So because Manu doesn't know about it, when you go for your monitoring visit and you wanted to interview women, the impact of program on women, and what answer were you given? I think that's very important to close this interview.
In fact, I was not allowed to interview the women, and I was asked rather to bring some women who could come and accompany their local representatives to meet them. So it was not possible at that time. And
let me add one last sentence, Nadeem, because you told them that I will bring a woman, and they said that our women observe Parda even from those women who don't observe Parda. So it was very difficult at that point.
Even if it is even the same with respect to that today, even if we go there, it will be the same. Not much change would have happened in case of.
I think we did cover the financial aspects of the program and the social aspects, so we can actually end the meeting here. you.